It's easy as 1, 2, 3 finding a company that excels in electrical, plumbing, AC installation and repairs, painting and much more. SAS Electrical is here for you, giving you excellent service, great rates, timely completion. Contact SAS Electrical at 709-9215 or 359-1014. Call us today. SAS Electrical. Streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and more. GLS 103.5 out of Tobago.
In your face, all over the place. We're online. You're listening to the hottest internet station
in the Caribbean. GLS
103.5
out of Tobago. Buckle up those seatbelts. No drinking and driving. No overtaking on the shoulders. No texting and driving. Your family awaits you at home. Drive to arrive alive. A message from GLS 103.5. As the nation continues in its fight against the deadly novel coronavirus, COVID-19, GLS 103.5 urges you to continue observing the new normal. Continue social distancing. Wear your face mask. Wash your hands regularly. Use hand sanitizers. Avoid assembling and generally continue to clean and sanitize your environment. We thank everyone for their continued yeoman service. The doctors, nurses, hospital attendants, supermarket attendants, hardware workers, those involved in pharmaceuticals, public service transport workers, sanitation workers. You are to be applauded in the fight against this deadly, novel coronavirus COVID-19. We urge the nation to continue to be safe and take the necessary precautions against COVID-19.
One, two.
One love. Ballet man looks up, but he's Rasta too. It's not how you look, but the things you do. Now, just say share your love to your brother man. Treat him kind and stretch out a helping hand. But you claim you're proud, you're kind, you're gentle. I hear you quoting words from the Bible, but now you're jumping on I black. Even though I and I black, you turn natty dread. Now you're calling me bald head. Rastaman, I man, have a care. Supposing like me, you just lose your hair. Now, tell me what you gonna do for identity when your dreadlocks growing inside like me. Then we will know who dread and who faking. Without them locks and flying and shaking. With all that I have said, you would know this I man dress, so don't be misled. Stop calling me bald head. One love. Rastaman, bald man, Jaja say, one love. With the same skin color from him above. Why this big separation between you and me? How can the hair define an identity? Is Babylon war we fighting? But I and I still separating. All the books I've read say we come from one bed. I don't mess with the dead, so I call me bald head. Rasta, Irie. I man go long locks to prove I man dread. Now to prove I man dread, I man shave he head. What's inside I man is inside I man too. So you see, I man is no different to you. The same oppression we both receiving is the same burden I and I bearing. I and I dread, I real, hail Selassie, I Rasta, dread I. Godhead, Rastaman.
Oh yes, good afternoon to one and all as we broadcasting live out of Trinidad and Tobago. Right here out of the Sister Isle of Tobago, I should say good afternoon to you. Good afternoon goes out to Nicole Passner out there in St. James. And forgetting my St. James crew, good afternoon. Good afternoon to Tony King. Good afternoon to each and everyone so far on the live. And good afternoon to Samantha Cristo. Good afternoon to Miss Baron. Yes, Nikki. That's my good girl, that's Scarborough. Good afternoon to Samantha Cristo out there in Trinidad. Good afternoon to each and everyone. Nice having you all inside GLS 103.5. Good afternoon to you, Mr. James. How are you this afternoon?
Well, not too bad. It's good to be here as usual. Very pleasant afternoon to you. Soon to be evening. Very pleasant afternoon to all my fellow Tobagonians who are viewing and checking in with interest as to the welfare of Tobago, which we all should be concerned about. And very pleasant afternoon, soon to be evening also, to my brothers and sisters in Trinidad, in the Caribbean and the rest of the wider world.
Of course.
We are all citizens of the world, and we were all created with a plan by our Creator.
Of course.
And then, in fact, we have a Creator, and as the scripture would have said, a fool says in his heart that there is no God.
Yeah, exactly.
Only a fool can say that. And in the words of Bob Marley, as he coined it in his own way, he said, fools say in their heart that Rasta, your God, is dead. You know what I'm saying? But my worldview is that there is God. And I don't say a God because God is not a God, but God is God.
So true.
God is God. God is the God of the universe, the God of creation, the only God there is. And if there was a God somewhere else, I believe the God that I know would have taken on that God, because there can only be one God.
Yes.
You know, and the reason why I'm here, and the reason why you are here with me also, I hope, is because we seek truth.
So true that.
And we seek justice.
Exactly.
And we seek a better world because the world is in tatters. And right here in Tobago, Trinidad, the Caribbean, we know how we have come to populate this part of the globe.
Yes.
We know how we have come to do that. And we seek a better life, and we seek justice. We know that the world down here is in tatters. In Tobago, we have our issues. In Trinidad, Trinidadians have their issues, and in what is known as Trinidad and Tobago, there are issues there also.
Of course.
And they are not issues beyond our grasp, beyond our reach to overhaul and to solve. Because God has given us the ability to solve those issues, because we have been given His Spirit. His Spirit is available. And it is only His Spirit that we were created with, and we lost at the fall of Adam. But we were redeemed in the life of Jesus Christ. And so that we have the ability, the grace that has appeared unto us, the scripture says, has appeared unto all men. Is there. Jesus Christ is the light that lights every man that comes into the world. So that light is there, the Spirit is there, and it is available. And only when we tap into that, we can find a solution for the world. Now let's talk about our immediate circumstances. Tobagonians like myself who have traveled whilst we were in the loins of our forefathers, approximately 400 years ago or so, from Africa to these shores, to this day, the Tobagonians who have come and have become, the Africans who have come to Tobago and have become Tobagonians, but not losing our roots, because we can never lose our roots. Tobago is part of the new world. Africa is part of the older world.
Right.
Africa bear the new world, because Africa is the root of us.
Okay.
And I can't exist without my roots.
From Africa.
You know what I mean? So the bloodline, the DNA of Africa is in me.
Right.
And so we have become Tobagonians here. And after 400 years of that journey, to this date, Tobagonians are not in charge of Tobago. And we, fellow Tobagonians, fellow citizens of Trinidad and Tobago in Trinidad, who are Trinidadians, Tobagonians down there, fellow Caribbean people, fellow world citizens.
Right.
Tobagonians to this date are suffering an historical injustice. That today we can't make a law in our own story. The very life that we live, and each man desires to essay the story of his own life.
Okay.
Those that are watching me now, they have the desire to be the subject of their own sentence, their own sentences,
okay,
their own phrases, their own statements, their own questions, their own paragraphs, indeed their own short story. They want to be the narrator of that story. They want to be the ones to essay the story in which they live. And in Tobago is much the same. But because of the incidents and the behaviors of people, including ourselves, through history, and history travels and history evolves, and history is not necessarily something of the past, but history really is a vehicle that travels through time.
Right, yes, yeah.
Making stories. To this day, the Tobagonians are not in charge of their own story, and we have suffered a lot for that.
Yeah.
We are not, in real sense, a nation in the world community. So many privileges and opportunities that others have, the Tobagonian does not have that at this point in time. We seek to have that, to have the same privileges, opportunities that the rest of the world community have.
Right.
We seek that. We seek to have the opportunities that Trinidadians have to be part of the world, to be part of CARICOM, in a true and real sense, to be part of the West Indies community, to be a part of the world community. We want an open door to the world.
Correct.
To access the opportunities that God has made available to the citizens of the world. But there's a political construct and a political problem in the construct of Trinidad and Tobago that denies the Tobagonians that natural, inalienable right to essay the story of Tobagonians.
Yeah.
We must write that essay. Nobody else must infringe
to write that
and impede upon that story. To do so is devilish. And I'll be fair, and I mean to cast no aspersions on anyone, not Tobagonians, not Trinidadians. I welcome my Trinidadian brothers and sisters. One of the things I observe is that when people speak of the hurts that those people experience, sometimes it offends those who are supposedly in the wrong, who might be impeding the story of another.
Okay.
We observe in the world today that some people that we call Caucasian, some European people, they are guilty of perhaps the most horrendous scheme and crime against humanity. And that scheme and crime right now is what shapes the world, and it is called racism. That has divided people into terminologies that bear the names of color. Observe, I didn't say color, but terminologies that bear the names of color, such as white and black and brown and yellow, or they just lump others apart from white as being colored. It is ungodly. It is ungodly, and it is not scriptural. But we that are hurt in that story, we can easily identify and sympathize with that. Those that have segregated themselves and have taken on the position of superiority, they get offended when we talk of that. Similarly, when Tobagonians speak of their hurt, and we should be free to do so,
Correct.
there are those who feel offended, and it ought not to be so. If we are truly hurt, then we should be able to, in the same way we can express ourselves in the racism that most of us acknowledge exists, we must be free to express ourselves in the discrimination or inequity or colonization that exists between Tobago and Trinidad. Because the brutal fact of the matter, with a political construct of previously 34-2 and now 39-2, clearly Tobagonians can't govern themselves in that arrangement. And there was a period of time here in Tobago that Tobago, albeit the Euro Tobago in terms of the French and the Anglo-England, they had complete government here in Tobago. And so that Tobago has a history of self-government in Tobago. There's a history. And if they could have done it, the Euro-Anglo-Caucasian people could have done it. Why deny the African people the same opportunity?
From doing that.
And we must ask ourselves, is 39-2, previously 34-2, the best framework for freedom and expression in Tobago, in Trinidad, in Tobago and Trinidad, in Trinidad and Tobago? Most logical people, most godly people will say, no. The answer to that
Is no.
is no. So when I'm speaking, I do not mean, I wanted to say this today, I do not mean to hit my brothers and sisters in Trinidad.
Right.
Because I believe in justice. And I do not seek to dominate Trinidad. I do not seek to rule Trinidad. It is wrong for Tobagonians or any other nation to run Trinidad. I know we have grown up with the mentality that Trinidad and Tobago is one country. That is not so. That is false teaching. Tobago is a separate country, naturally, geographically, and historically from that of Trinidad. In 1889, due to colonial decisions, Tobago and Trinidad will fuse together. That is what we are now wrongly calling one country.
Okay.
That happened to make Tobago and Trinidad one colony of England or Britain, if you like. But specifically, one colony of England. And Tobago, now that these are independent free times, Tobagonians are suffering as a result of that decision. So Trinidadians have succeeded the government, the colonial government, and have taken charge of the same government and now administering government in Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
My friends, this is the truth. This is the political history of the Caribbean. It is one of colonization. It is not one that is sympathetic to African prosperity. It is not one that is such. The history of the Caribbean is one of hurt, is one of slavery, is one of colonization and oppression of people. The oppressors are not going to make us free. That responsibility now falls upon us. And we are the ones to examine the circumstances critically and to free ourselves from the bondage that exists.
That exists.
Huh? We are the ones to do that.
Right.
And that's what we are doing here, and that's the reason for me being here this evening. So this is where we are. What is now incumbent upon us? We face a situation, and this has been going on for a while, and
From the bondage that
the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, legally called, has accepted the fact that in 1997, the Parliament accepted the fact that the Parliament itself, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, has been operating a colonial structure where Tobago is the colony, and for all intents and purposes, Trinidad is the colonizer. The Parliament voted on that when it accepted the motion by A&R Robinson for internal self-government in Tobago. So we're not disputing that. We have had so Tobago and Trinidad have had a long history together. The question now, we are all in the Caribbean here together. We have a common history in the sense that we have come from Africa, in the sense that we were all subordinated and enslaved together.
Right.
The Trinidadians in the country of Trinidad and the Tobagonians in the country of Tobago. That's the history. The island country of Tobago and the island country of Trinidad. We were made slaves in our different lands.
Okay.
The question now is, how do we now coexist justly, fairly, and prosperously, lovingly? Because we are brothers.
Of course.
You might say that we are sisters. But for now, I'll go with brothers.
Brothers, yeah, of course.
We are brothers, and we ought to look out for each other and to be your brother's keeper.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And it's possible to have a relationship where I am free, Tobago is free, and the Trinidadian is free, and we, as we say, we be a brother's keeper. It's possible.
Of course.
So I say this so that to make it very clear as to what is really taking place and why I say the things that I say. My personality is such that when I'm convinced of something, I say it powerfully and I say it fearlessly.
Yes.
But not offensively.
Correct.
This is where we are. I am saying that the way forward, because I've been this a long time spending sleepless nights for 2 years, from some in the region of 2000 to 2002. I spent about 2 years without sleep, meditating on the issues of Tobago, trying to find a way to solve those issues, especially the governmental issue.
Issues, yeah.
And there can be no central government between Tobago and Trinidad. And in fact, there is no central government now between Tobago and Trinidad. What exists is a colonial government, and the parliamentary record has accepted that fact when they accepted the motion of internal self-government. To accept a motion for internal self-government, there is an admission of colonization. So that's not in debate. This is education, real education, because this kind of education has missed the schools and the university. All the schools have not been teaching these things and have not been teaching the right subject matters.
Okay.
I'm teaching the real history here now and proper interpretation of Tobago and Trinidad and the history of Tobago and Trinidad. Huh?
Of course, of course.
That's what I'm dealing with. And I'm saying there is no central government between Tobago and Trinidad. What you have is a colonial government. And when we speak the language, we so careful, we must speak the truth, because words multiply. Huh? Words give life to the words that are spoken. Yeah? They give life to the images, the tangible images of the word, of the invisible word that is spoken. So it's very important. And when we in Tobago refer to the government in Trinidad, we must refer to it in the context of our experience and our history.
Yes.
And we must not speak of central government, because that doesn't exist. We say these things because we have heard it through the media from Trinidad. But Trinidad has a central government.
Okay, right.
That government is not our central government. And we have no leverage over it. That government doesn't listen to us. And it does not have to. That government is not voted in by us. Are you with me?
Correct.
It is not voted in by us because we have 2 seats.
Yes, just only 2 seats.
So we can't make the government.
Correct.
And every election...
Our voice is not heard.
No, it cannot be. And it wasn't ours, because the history of it, the history, if you go back to the history, it was a Trinidad government.
Right.
Because the government in Tobago was closed down in 1889.
Okay.
It is the same governmental structure operating down there. It's just that those people who came as slaves, slave laborers, and indented laborers, they have now taken over the same governmental institution, while Tobago had none.
You're
And
right.
Tobago now psychologically was oriented to look to Port of Spain for government.
Yes, yes.
And that is what exists now. So Tobagonians are psychological, many of us are psychologically trapped to look to Trinidad for government. And in the same way, this Trinidadian is psychologically trapped, some of them, to believe that the government in Trinidad, they have responsibility for Tobago. But they can't really govern or satisfy Tobago, because they're not really living in Tobago.
Okay.
And they have not gone through the experiences of Tobago, and they really don't know what Tobagonians need. So that government in Trinidad cannot be the government of Tobago.
Okay.
Right? In the reason it can't be. Just as if we have a government in Tobago here, it can't be the government of Trinidad.
Right.
People wake up to their circumstances every day, and they go to bed to their own circumstances
Their
and
own
meditate upon their own incumbencies and so on, upon their own circumstances that are pressing hard upon them, that needs daily attention. So the night is really used to solve the problems that are or challenges that they're going to face tomorrow, based on what happened today.
Quite right, quite right.
Right? So that the way forward for Tobago and Trinidad, which these elections cannot address and would not address, we need to be clear.
On that part.
So that Tobago needs to be a state, not just a country. We are a country.
Right.
We are a nation, a people that live geographically in an island space. We need now to constitute that as a state, to have juridical personality in the world. It's just like the United States or Europe. There are 50 separate states in America. And they come together to form the United States of America. What you have here in Trinidad and Tobago, it's not written in the Constitution, but Trinidad and Tobago is described as a single state, or as they say, a unitary state. It has not worked and it can't work. What is needed are separate states united.
A separate state.
Separate states. So you have personality and individuality. You have self-actualization. So you have two states operating in tandem together, operating in unison.
Right.
Two separate states. You can't have one single state. It cannot be properly constituted. You cannot constitute Tobago and Trinidad as one state or one country. It can't work. And that has to be totally dismissed. So Tobago must be its own state, and Trinidad be its own state. Tobagonians are free to direct the story of Tobago, and Trinidadians are free to direct the story
of
Trinidad. As I was saying last week, there is a model that is working wonderfully well right here in the Caribbean that we overlook. So sometimes we tend to look to Europe, which has different states that form the European Union. Belgium doesn't reign over France. France does not reign over Belgium or Spain or Italy. They are all independent. But they have come together to make common policies for the good. Not a principle or a policy based on domination of one over the other. But a principle based on duality. You know what I'm saying? That is what is needed here. And in the Caribbean here, in the OCS countries, which consists of St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and Dominica, Grenada, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts Nevis. That is what is going on. They are separate countries, separate states. And they can all access the world independent of each other. But there are matters for which they have come together and united on, so that they share the same currency. And incidentally, their currency is stronger than that of Trinidad and Tobago, which is said to be richer than them. But they have a stronger currency. The OACS dollar is stronger than the TT dollar, stronger than the Jamaican dollar, stronger than the Guyanese dollar. There is only one dollar that is stronger than the OACS dollar in the Caribbean, and that's the Bajan dollar. And in a real sense, the Bajan economy is in total tatters. That strength now is only really superficial, as they are trying to hold on to their pride. by not devaluing the dollar, as the case may be. That is the way forward. There's no other way. We have to discuss things now. Do we go with a TT dollar? But that's for the next assembly. Let me put it better than that. That's for the next government of Tobago to do. That's for the next government of Tobago. And we have to abandon the idea of calling the elected members in Tobago or the executive in Tobago, calling the executive in the assembly and just say the assembly. Right? Because the assembly has different components. It has the legislative aspect or element, and it has the executive element. What we don't have under the control of the government of Tobago is the judicial aspect, and which must be addressed. You can't run a government without educating on matters, without dispensing justice. Justice must be under the control of Tobago. And especially with the rising mountain crime in Tobago, which is alien to the character, to the culture of Tobago. That's not us, that's somebody else. Those occurrences in Tobago do not resemble Tobago. They resemble somebody else. And we need quick intervention to deal with that. Otherwise, Tobago in the next 10, 20 years will be totally disfigured and resemble other countries.
Wow.
We need to understand that.
And that's the journey.
This is not the trend. You're looking at 1 month of 5 murders. That's not in Tobago. And we in Tobago, the political directorate in Tobago is not responsible for our own peace and security. Now, how can that be acceptable? You have a security minister who is not Tobagonian. He doesn't know Tobago. He can't feel for Tobago. He can't feel hurt because he's not Tobagonian. Those of us who grew up with our doors open, sleep in the night with doors open, windows open, and no problem. He can't hurt over that peace and culture vanishing in Tobago.
Exactly.
And he cannot be my minister of security. He's not. He's the minister of security in a colonial government.
Just permit me one moment.
Sure.
I see plenty people passing in. I'd like to say good afternoon goes out to the Joseph family. Good afternoon to Joseph Charles. Good afternoon also to Julie Joseph. Out there in Jamaica, nice having you inside. Good afternoon to Vince Leacock. Good afternoon to Lee out there in England. Good afternoon to Kelly Thomas. Shelly Ann. Good afternoon. I see you sending comments there as well. All right, thank you. Also, Kizzy and that's all right. No, that's well. And also to Michelle Murray. Good afternoon to each and everyone. Nice being inside. Mr. James, concerning the issue about the election that call sudden, what is your view on the election being for the 10th of August? Someone would like to know what is your view on that topic. If you think it is too early, or
no, I can't say it's too early. The 5 years have basically come. Yeah, okay. The government was the election last was on September the 17th, 2015.
Okay.
All right. So by August you have really spent a year. The anniversary will be celebrated on the same day on September 7th. Right. But really and truly, when you're counting, if you go to the same month, it's really, that's the 13th month. You know. September to September is really 13 months. You know. From September to August is 12 months. So really and truly, by August, you have really had 5 years. And really and truly, a governmental term is 5 years. 5 years. It's just that people go into the 13th month to call it a year. As the case may they say December to December is a year, but December to December is really more than a year. January to December is a year where we'll get 12 months.
Right.
So that the government will, because this is really, and it's a good thing that the person asked a question, because it's something that was on my mind. The government is desirous of getting in back to power. I don't know if they are burdened by a desire to really serve.
Okay.
That will not be my sense of the government. It's not that they are so eager to represent. I pronounce the word represent because sometimes when you say represent, the true meaning of the word is lost.
Okay.
But those are two words that will join together. Present and
represent.
So we just pronounce it represent. And I say the meaning is lost.
Right.
The idea of representation is to present people. It's like you have a package or a matter as the case may be. We need to represent it. We are saying in the way it is now, in the current stage that is in, we want it to be better.
Right.
So I want you to represent it. Make the story better for me. I'm not sure. But you look at the Tobago itself.
Yes.
Look at those depressed communities in Trinidad for years unendingly. There's no transformation. There's no representation of those communities. Those communities exist in poverty.
Okay.
So who can you tell me you have 39 representatives? Who are they really representing? Because there's no renewing, there's no empowerment, there's no transformation of the lives of those people. They exist in the ghetto, and people in fact boast about ghetto. Ghetto is not anything to boast about, and ghetto should be dismissed from our vocabulary. I grew up, and I used to be on the block too, and so on, and a father coming, from the ghetto, and it's a kind of boast. Ghetto is not anything to boast about. There should be no ghettos, and there is enough money, enough resources in Trinidad and Tobago to be monetized to ensure a proper standard of living for every single Tobagonian and Trinidadian, and that will not be anything like a ghetto.
Okay.
So we need to go into the political system, the socio-political system, and see who really are being represented and getting better. Their current presentation is getting better and better and better. We need to see who are those people, and we can point them out. The Africans in Trinidad, the time has come. God is doing something around the world. You see what is the shaking that is taking place. The Africans in Trinidad need to get serious. Start to get serious. And start thinking on the quality of your lives. Do not blindly follow political parties, so-called, with all their slogans. But look at yourselves. See who the wealth of Trinidad goes to. And you can't be happy with that. If you're happy that you're not a real people. I'm interested in you because we come from the same place. We have come from Africa. And I'm interested in you. And I'm not afraid to represent Africa. I'm not afraid to talk about Africa and the experiences of the people of African diaspora in the world. Some people call it racism. Well, they can come to me. They can tackle me. But if they tackle me, they will lose. And it is not Indo or Euro to represent Africa. Right. It is the Africans to do it.
The Africans.
And we must be able to examine our own circumstances and abandon this stupid idea that emancipation means beating of drums and putting on clothes. Right. Anybody could beat drums and put on clothes. That is not a reflection of emancipation. Those who have been carrying on that narrative and collected money have been deceiving you. Right. Emancipation means how is the quality of life from the time you come, how has the quality of that life been multiplying, been adding, getting better? How many businesses do you own? What is the level of your education? I'm talking about real education.
Real, yeah.
the social ills in the society, who are they plaguing? If you're having rampantly a set of guns and drugs afflicting the society, how really are you being emancipated? In fact, you're being enslaved by those people who are bringing in guns and drugs and using you, the vulnerable community, to cause mayhem and jeopardizing your destiny and your future and the quality of life in Trinidad as a whole. It is something in Tobago we watch on and we front at. You have to understand, you have to watch at your political parties. Are they really representing you really? And are you voting in fear of... I didn't want to go all that far there, but the time will come when I have to go there, because what's happening, and I look at Trinidad objectively. The Africans aren't benefiting from the politics.
Right.
They vote PNM because they are afraid of the UNC. The real reason for voting PNM is because they are afraid of the UNC.
Of the UNC.
The UNC constituency, they're not afraid really of the PNM per se. But they don't want to be governed by Afro, or what they perceive to be Afro, or what they perceive to be others. And that's a problem we have in the world, and the world is suffering from that. How do we construct governments of peace in a diverse world? A world of so many different ethnicities, one race, but so many different ethnicities. How do we construct a world where everybody feels at ease in states or in countries? We are afraid of winner take it all. You look at what is going on in Guyana now.
Yeah.
It's a fear. It is driven by two things, by fear and greed.
Yes.
You might add dominance to that.
Exactly.
So that the most vulnerable, especially the Afro community, they are afraid of Indo control. And they don't feel that they will be represented. There's also the narrative that the country, Guyana, belongs to them. And with some merit. Because they came 400 years ago and they built the cabin.
Okay.
And they planted the corn.
So true.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yes.
Others came after. And they have grown in number. And what we call in democracy here, we need to examine that. And democracy is said to be, it is said in the fashion that it is said with legitimacy. What we practice as and call democracy, it is really legitimate. So because your number, your ethnic number is greater than mine, you can now be my government forever because we happen to live in the same jurisdiction. Is that really right?
No.
Is it right to discard all my labor in slavery to build the country? It must be stated. In Trinidad, Africans built Trinidad. In Tobago, Africans built Tobago. In Guyana, Africans built Guyana.
Wow.
They were built on the backs of African labor. It ought not to be true that he that is first shall be last, and he that last shall be first.
Yeah.
That ought not to be true of Guyana, and it ought not to be true of Trinidad. But you know, here right now, Afro Trinidad is suffering for leadership. Keith Rowley is not an Afro Trinidadian, and he cannot lead Trinidad, and he's doing nothing really
for Trinidad. For Tobago.
There's no narrative really that he's really selling to the Afro Trinidadian to lift them up. When I look through the story of Trinidad, it has been going one way for the longest time, and it seems to be going in that same direction. Those who have come from India, forget the 1%, they cannot be defeated. They are filled with money, and they have benefited the most from the resources. They benefit from the elections, and they benefit from the government and the resources of Trinidad and also Tobago.
Just permit me one moment. Good
Sure.
afternoon to Judy. Good afternoon, that's Johnson. Also, good afternoon to Diane Roberts. Good afternoon also to Anand Sikaram. Out there, good afternoon to you all. Nice having plenty of you all, a lot of you all on the inside. Don't forget your comments. And as we're going through that, Mr. James, there was a gentleman who had asked of a question last week pertaining to the airport. He had commented you 100% for what you were saying. You need to get some more insight on that as we go along the afternoon proceedings.
Okay.
Yeah, back to you once again.
Yeah. So there needs to be a proper conversation. It cannot be shied away from. Like I said, the story is going one way. One way. Is that, I mean, the Indian population, the East Indian population, has grown tremendously. And they are now the majority population in Trinidad. It tells me also that the Africans have been without leadership and without a plan. They are killing each other with guns and drugs and ghetto life and with crazy music
So true.
that is not inspiring,
Exactly.
educating, educational, as you say, inspirational, and so on. So the music is destructive that they are feeding on.
100% agree.
And there needs leadership. Somebody has to come out and tell them. You need aggressive leadership in those communities in John, Laventine, and all those places. Leadership is what changes and lifts people. Shepherding. Real shepherding the flock.
Yes.
So the Africans are killing out each other. And they're not making children. The family structure is totally destroyed. And the Indians are increasing in numbers. And the war is being fought and won incrementally every election. And after a while, and I'm predicting, by the maybe not this one, by the next election. So now we are in 2020.
Yeah, correct.
By this election here, maybe the last one the PNM will win, if they win it.
If they win it.
By 2025, the Africans in Trinidad can kiss any hope of being in government goodbye forever based on the system. And I'll tell you how I can give the historical sequence of that. When I come to know myself in the 70s, the UNC, which was formerly ULF, had 8 seats.
8.
Right? And then they moved to 9 seats.
Okay.
Yeah? Yeah? The PNM was a majority government all the time. Eh?
Following
They moved
you.
to 9 seats, and from 9 seats, they jumped to 13 seats. And every time they jump, the PNM decreases. Huh?
Yes, yes.
It's like a seesaw. UNC go up, the PNM go
Go
down.
down.
And that has been the trend ever since. Ever since I know myself.
Wow.
It's been going like that.
Okay.
The way it has been pushing down. UNC goes up, PNM goes down.
So it never be a
And
balance.
the Africans, they see themselves, their political identity is PNM. Afro-Trinidad and political identity is
It's
PNM.
PNM.
It's going up.
Okay.
And by 1995 is when you had the 1772. Remember that 1772?
Yeah, 17.
And Robinson was the kingmaker and he made Pandy the prime minister and he became the president. It has been going on. So they moved from 13 and they increased by 4 seats. They jumped
Right.
to 17. And after that 17, by the next election, when they gain again, it went to 19. Right? And from 19, they went to 21, thereabout.
Right.
And then you had the strife and so on back at the 18, they jump back now, they slip back now to 18 at the 18. You follow me? You had
Yeah.
17, 17,
17,
and then you had the 18.
Yeah, I remember that time.
And the PNM slipped again. It's because of the 2 seats in Tobago. There were 16 in Trinidad that dropped. PNM dropped to 16. It's the 2 Tobago seats that make up the next 2 to
The
give
next
it
2.
18.
Balance.
What I'm showing you is a story.
Yes, yes.
Is a sequence. This is not fiction. This is real life facts. The Africans in Trinidad who built the cabin and plant the corn, they need to be empowered. The education system is not working for them. And I have said they don't need the same education system. People of different backgrounds, let me put it. People of different backgrounds, people of different ethnicities don't necessarily people in the same country but different don't necessarily need the same type of education. When is the PNM going to get serious and represent
The people.
Afro Trinidad?
Trinidadians.
We must vanquish the idea that you can't represent a lot. Government is about representation, especially the people who needs it. The people, who need it most.
Yes, yes.
And you can justify that. And in fact, nobody else, no other entity should be upset because you are lifting up our people that need to be lifted up.
Just permit me one moment. Just take those two comments, one from Nicole Pasnell and one from Diane Roberts. Nicole is saying, we like you to come talk to them. Okay.
Come talk to them.
Right. That is very good.
You talk facts.
And this is Trinidad actually saying this, and Tobago real talk, real facts.
But that's in fact, anybody who watching in,
yes,
we know that. There has been a hidden element in the back of the PNM controlling the PNM all the time. Dr. Rowley is not in charge of the PNM. That's clear. He's not in charge. There's a superstructure in the back that is leading the PNM and responsible for the allocation, the apportioning of wealth, where the wealth goes. And so that's the fact. Afro Trinidadians need leadership. Exactly. Dr. Rowley is not leading Tobagonians either. He is not representing. We must talk the truth, and he has to be unmasked and to see exactly he's been used, and he was placed at the forefront for a particular reason. He feels good because he can now put that upon his resume. I was Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. I came from Snow to Whitehall, and he can have a personal boast, but it's all empty. If you really can't lift up people who needs lifting up, you wasted your time. It's all vain, it's all vanity. You will depart the world and wonder, what really is my accomplishment? Because you have not served the people
in the way
that God has made in his own likeness and image that need it. You feel what I'm saying?
Of course.
So that there is a fear of winner take it all. What is going on in Ghana now is real fear and greed. People are afraid to be under. Election is real fear because every election the government can change, and the winner will take all.
So true.
So a system has to be defined where nobody loses power. Everybody shares the power. Every constituency. That's the challenge of Trinidad. Where the resources can be divided properly. Where the opportunities can be divided properly. That's the conversation that must take place in Trinidad. People are afraid of being dominated by others. It's what is going on in America now. And Tobagonians have been under the domination of Trinidad forever. God is about to change that.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of roses. I'm seeing a lot of loves and heart. Thumbs up is going up to you.
God is about to change
the facts.
So that next election in Tobago is not about any history of any woman becoming first chief secretary. I don't mean to be rude to my good friend, all of us from the East. It's not about that.
Yes.
It's not about me.
Yes.
It's not about any individual and any individual accolade. It's about the aspiration. It's about the ambition and the aspiration, the prosperity, the freedom of a people. It's about justice and righteousness. You have to have a vision.
So true.
So that the next government in Tobago must have a vision clearly declared. There has to be a declaration of the mission based upon the vision. And it must be made clear that Tobagonians from the onset are moving into that phase of independence. from the start.
Yes, yes.
And you know, they've been this fair about the word independence. And like if the opposite of independence is good. Now, if you have a choice between independence and dependence, which would you choose?
Between independence
And dependence. Which one would you choose?
Dependence, someone like it. Dependence.
You choose dependence instead of independence?
I
want you to listen to it.
Yeah, go again.
Where you are dependent on somebody.
All right.
So you are invalid and you can't do nothing. So you are dependent.
All right. The independent.
And see what happened to the word independent is not understood in the sense that it's about suffixes and prefixes.
Right.
Right. So when you want to make an opposite, you use on or in.
In, yes,
right?
yes.
So the word is dependent.
Dependent.
But you don't want to be dependent on anybody. Nobody wants that.
Right. So you want to be independent.
So you want to be the opposite of that. But you don't say undependent. That's not English. You say
independent.
Dependent. I want to explain that properly.
Yeah.
The word is dependent. If you want the opposite, you have to put a prefix to it.
Okay.
To change, to make the opposite. In English, you don't say undependent. You say independent. Because the word on or in is used to create, to shift the meaning of the word. Everybody wants to be independent.
Correct.
The reason why they fear of the election, Afro-Guyanese figures do, if the PPP, Civic, wins the election, they lose their independence.
Okay.
They lose that. The same way in Trinidad now, if the UNC wins the election, the Afro-Trinidadians figures though they have lost independence.
Okay.
So there's a real desire to be independent. Even if their independence is not a real one.
Yeah.
Because they are not really in charge of the government. You look at let's be frank. Because I want to be frank here. Look at the cabinet in Trinidad. Look at what is supposed to be the Afro government. The PNM, the Afro dominated. Because they're the ones who vote. The votes that vote for the PNM are African votes.
Exactly.
Look at the composition of the cabinet. You have Rowley to the top, Dr. Keith Rowley. So we say we must say honorable. To the top. Then after that you have the finance minister.
Yes.
In both.
Everybody else says.
Yes, you just check what's going on in both after. You can't find an African after that. You have in both. You have Rambarat. You have Franklin Kant. You have Alwari. You have the energy. Stuart Young. Look at who owned the major positions. Security minister. Well, that was paid for. You know what I'm saying? Right? Attorney General. Clearly that was bargained for, decided already. Those are key positions.
Yes, yeah.
Then finance minister. After Keith Rowley, who is the affluent, influential African in the government? Tell me. The Africans have no power in the PNM in Trinidad. None whatsoever.
It's true.
Where are they? Let's talk brutal facts here.
Yeah.
But who built the cabin? Who plant the corn?
So
Who is the plantation? The Africans are the plantation. And they desperately love PNM because why? Not that the PNM is good, it has never been good really. But they're afraid of the UNC. So that they give the love and they can't properly criticize the PNM because every time they criticize the PNM, it's like they're putting for the UNC. So you can't even objectively criticize them. And they know that. So they can afford to do a lot of things and get away with it.
Right.
Similarly, the UNC supporters do. The UNC can do a lot of things wrong and get away with it. Like their last term in office. We all know. Perhaps the most corrupt government the world has ever seen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the supporters will still support them. Because the real issue is the independence for them. They don't want to be governed by the PNM and the African. So whether they thief or not, they want to vote. And vice versa. So that is what has been going on. So I'm saying there has to be a conversation. The world now is seeking justice. The world is seeking justice. The world has to get away from the parochial idea of one, what's the word for that? But parochialism on the whole. So you have this group here, they win and they take it all. All the contracts belong now to them. And
exactly.
But if you notice with the businessmen now, they support both sides. Because they can't afford to be in power or out of power for 5 years. They can't afford that. My business can't scrap.
So true.
So their real party is what they call PIP, the party in power.
In power, right. I see it.
So I say these things so that the viewers, the listeners, can really ponder and those things, because I'm saying it's a conversation that Trinidad has been shying away from. Lloyd Best has been calling for it. They need to get at the table. Indo Trinidad, Afro Trinidad, and Tobago. We all need to come at the table honestly.
Correct.
So that there's an outstanding issue. I'm a Tobagonian and this is what I have to represent. I have to represent my own experience there, the experience of my people. I have to represent that. And I'm here to represent that. By the grace of Almighty mighty God, God is the leader of all things good. And if He has me there, and if He's not there, I don't want to be there. If God is not there,
you don't want to be.
If God is not in the boat, I don't want to be there.
Exactly.
If God is not in the battle, if God is not in the war, I don't want to be there. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
I have no business being there if God is not there.
Right, of course.
So that next year, there will be some sense, finally, in Tobago, to lead Tobago to its destiny in the world. And as a matter of fact, those who know that they don't have the ability, they don't have the calling, the appointing, the anointing, don't frustrate the people of Tobago.
So true.
Don't seek to go there. We have had 20 years of just spinning around in the wilderness in circles there. You can't deliver. You don't know your... Dr. Rowley came here. He make a mess of the PNM in Tobago here. Shows you that the power really lies and comes from Trinidad. He made a total mess in the last few months there with swearing of this. It's all kind of... He want to be top dog and so on. He get rid of London. Then he get rid of Kelvin Charles. We have to understand these things.
Yes.
And let us know that it's he that has been doing all those nonsense. Is he been doing all those things? Get rid of London. He got rid of Kelvin Charles. He want to be in total dominion and domination. And he does not want another African really who can parallel him
To be
in the political space, who can rival him. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want that. He wants people that he can control for he and his cohorts in Trinidad. So he has turned the House Assembly into shambles. And there's no real power.
Okay.
In Tobago, he has to be on mass. And once I'm here, I have to talk the truth without fake
Of course,
favor
of course.
or ill will or any bias of affection,
Exactly.
as the case may be. So Tobago has to be led to destiny. From day one, the opening statement is independence.
Yes.
The opening statement is constitutional reform between Tobago and Trinidad. So you have a free and independent Tobago, you have a free and independent Trinidad.
Exactly.
For the matters that are of mutual interest, we have had a long history with Trinidad, and we're not severing that. We're not severing that. We will maintain. We call the union now, the agreed union between the two independent states, the United Islands of the West Indies.
Okay.
Not of the West Indies, sorry, in the West Indies. I've been thinking of this long and hard for a long time. The United Islands, the UIWI,
Right.
where Trinidad will write its own story. It will essay its own story. It will determine its own paragraphs and statements and questions and so on. It's free. And that's beautiful. Tobago will do the same. We'll enter the world. We'll be in the conventions of the world, in the meeting places of the world. We will be there as a people, Tobagonian, as we set up a nation under God. Because without God, we can't make it. I'm not fooling myself. Without God, we can't make it. Even this fight for constitutional reform, this fight for self-government in Tobago, without God, we can't do it. The evil that is in this world is much too powerful for these little Africans here in Tobago as we can see. The evil is too much. We can't make it. But God, who have promised to help the weak and the downtrodden, He has declared His hand. And He will do it. So we maintain freedom of movement between Tobago and Trinidad for law-abiding citizens. The criminal element will not be permitted from Trinidad to Tobago. If you have a history of crime, we will have our database, as the case may be, and you cannot enter. We have to stop the guns that coming in from Trinidad to Tobago on the boat and all of that. And we have to put in the institutions righteous people in the institutions. We have to stop the gun running and drug running between Tobago on the Caribbean Sea. There, we know that it's happening. We have to clean up the police service.
So true.
We must have a secretary for Homeland Security right here in Tobago. The police service in Tobago must be under the control of the government of Tobago and not the control of the government in Trinidad. The police service must be subject to the directives, to the policies, to the principles of the government and culture and people of Tobago, not Trinidad. You can have no military weaponry, artillery in Tobago must be under the control of the government of Trinidad. That's nonsense.
Exactly.
All governmental responsibilities in Tobago must be under the control, the will of the people of Tobago. Because what has happened is that Tobago has emerged as a police state. And let me explain that.
As a police state.
Yeah, Tobago is a police state. It's a Trinidad police state. So that the disfiguring of Tobago has not been done without the knowledge, complicity, activism of the police service in Tobago. It's impossible. Tobago is a small place. Yeah. It has been done with the full knowledge and involvement of top brasses. That's the fact. The role of the police is to protect the peace and the culture and the righteousness of the society, not to contribute to the decay. And we need to pull back these things if we want to build a decent society. And we ought to desire to build a decent society. We can't be discussing government without police. Who is going to police the principles that we have cherished and we desire to implement? Who is going to do it? You feel what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So the complete governmental policies must be under Tobago. Citizenship and so on. You have people coming in, just roaming around Tobago. We not in charge. This is our land. This is our home. People coming from all about the world, and we can't make any law for them.
Exactly.
The thing is, they know that we are powerless here too. They know that the Tobago can't make any law, so that they have no respect for us.
So true.
Because all those things are coming from Trinidad. And ask yourself, this is the land. This land is the nativity of Dr. Rowley. Has he ever represented those things? No. He's not representing Afro-Trinidad. What he will do, come out and make some statements and sound intellectual.
Yeah.
Sound intelligent and make some statements, but really no effect and so on, really. You're not representing Afro-Trinidad. You have to represent your history.
Correct.
You have to represent your own family, your own people. You have to transform that. He's not representing Tobago. Who is he really representing? Vanity. It's really vanity.
Vanity, yes.
Right? So we need to construct that. And as I was saying last week, a lot of people have the boldness. You can't put those rookies there, but they don't have the conviction. They're not baptized. Right? So a lot of the youngsters you see now aiming for power in Tobago, they're not baptized.
They're not ready to serve.
No, they're not baptized. I'm not talking baptized in water.
I understand. I understand where you're coming from.
You have to be baptized in this struggle. You have to be fully immersed and convinced and ready. You must be able to recall experiences You know what I mean? That are so, you have to be seasoned to be baptized.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Diane. Thank you. I'll
You
see
have to be,
Diane
you have to,
say,
you have to, you have to be baptized,
Diane say, you preach it.
right?
You come
To do the struggle. So I was saying last week, and you have to arm yourself with this knowledge, with this conviction, that every law that impinges or infringes upon your right is illegal.
Exactly.
Slavery was a law, but slavery is illegal. Slavery is illegitimate. Don't get time for that. Any man, Iraq was a law, a country itself is constituted by law. America went into Iraq and overtake it. So we have to be armed with this. If you comply with them, you will never be free. And trying to run Tobago by an House Assembly Act, you will never be free. You have to go by the natural law. And as I said too, the Assembly Act in its the new House Assembly Act or the later House Assembly Act in its 24 years have never been utilized.
No.
This is a great shame, I have it here.
Yes. Are we going to go through it in a short
This House Assembly Act has never been utilized. What has happened in Tobago is that those who went in, and I excuse the Hocho Charles regime because it was new, and he did what he could have done within the short space of time.
Okay.
Even taking the government to the Dispute Resolution Commission and so on. And I mean, but subsequent to that, you had Mr. London, who was responsible for the resurrection of PNM, not only in Tobago but also in Trinidad. And you ask yourself, what is Tobago to be? What has Tobago gained from all of this? Tobago revived, said Dr. Mr. London, Tobago revived the PNM in 2001, January 29, when the NR lost the election.
Yeah.
From since then to now, the only thing that has happened to the House Assembly Act is that they increased the number of secretaries from 67, something like that, in order to facilitate Claudia Groom Duke to make her a secretary. That's the only thing that has happened.
Okay. They
We collect
increase
what,
it.
yeah, they're from 67. A selfish move. No, that is wrong.
Okay.
But in order to make to maintain this the so-called sanity of the party, prevent it from breaking up, she wanted a secretarial position. So they gave her that. Utilities ought to be under the Tobago House Assembly. It is not. Airports and wharves and all these things ought to be under the House Assembly Act. It is not. The Assembly has a provision to make laws. To be called assembly laws. In 24 years, could you imagine that? You have what you hear using the term House Assembly Legislature. It never made or proposed a single law. Every week in Trinidad, the government in Trinidad has a legislative program going to the parliament to change the country, to address issues. But in Tobago, there's a provision there. And by that provision, they could have challenged the system and caused real politics and political debate to be generated in that move towards freedom. They have not done a single thing. And what happened now is that the PNM come back in Trinidad in the same 2001 at the 1818 in November, 1818. So you had PNM here and you had PNM down there in Trinidad. But no evolution. No evolution whatsoever. It has not progressed. These are brutal facts. No. The guy had asked a question concerning the election. I don't know if I had fully answered the question. I don't really want to get into
that part.
The elections. I know that these elections have no bearing on the responsibility of the new House Assembly. The Trinidad Parliament cannot take Tobago to freedom. And it is not their role.
So true.
I cannot give you freedom.
So true.
And I cannot legislate or make the laws to define your freedom.
So
that's
true.
your responsibility.
Correct.
It is the responsibility of the elected government in Tobago to declare that freedom in Tobago and with the people to constitute and to be in partnership with the people of Tobago
Okay.
concerning their natural rights and all the policies and principles that rightfully belong to Tobago to generate that prosperity. The land, the sea, and air of Tobago belong to Tobago and must be under control by the government and people of Tobago. The resources in the sea are not too much for us. The strategic location of Tobago's airspace is not beyond us and ought not to be out of our reach. It belongs to us.
To us, yes.
Tongue and country planning in Tobago under the House Assembly Act, as they call it, ought not to be controlled. Today, I can tell you, it is still run from Trinidad. And it is very strategic. Trinidad does not want to give up tongue and country planning because there are many poachers from the government in Trinidad. Both UNC and PNM, they have interest, land interest in Tobago and do not want to pass off that responsibility to the people of Tobago. In fact, they don't want to pass power. This is a Dr. Rowley, the PNM here would have carved out what they call a self-government bill, send it to Trinidad. Dr. Rowley have it there for 5 years and he never laid it in Parliament. They don't want to transfer that power. They don't want to lose what doesn't belong to them. Exactly. Tobago does not belong to them. Tobago's tongue planning or Tobago's tongue does not belong to Trinidad. Tobago's country and tongue do not belong to Trinidad. But they have colonial tendencies. So they want Tobago to remain under their control. No, the person who made that in partnership with the UNC was N.I. Robinson.
Right.
And he got certain things because he made a trade, but Basil Pandey got the prime ministership, he became president, and he also got the House Assembly Act. Politics is about the making deals. So he made the law. The PNM came in after and they decided they're not going to honor the law. And all now, they want to run a society and they want to have law and order. Is it any surprise the society is so decayed? So, if you know what I'm saying? Because even the very government would not honor the law. So all now they're in breach of the law. The law also said all taxes originating in Tobago shall remain in Tobago. It's not happening. The banks that are controlled from Trinidad still paying the taxes in Trinidad. The insurance companies and so on, and many other different businesses from Trinidad, they are investing in Tobago and paying the monies in Trinidad. That's what they call colonization. It's no different.
That's why we always have to run.
That's what they call colonization. So we have a lot of things to do. I born in Tobago, but I have to be registered in Trinidad. That has to stop.
So true that.
My birth and death certificate, the origin must be Tobago, and it must remain in Tobago.
In Tobago, so true that.
There's a lot of work to be done in Tobago, but it's beautiful. We have to deal with the registration of car numbers and all these things. Tobago car numbers must be different. Tobago registration plates must be different from the registration plates in Trinidad. There's so much to be done, and it's so beautiful to be able to address these things. As I said, we must have our own cricket team, football team, and so look, for instance, the Caribbean CPL. I don't know if it's a Mama Guy thing. It was launched in Tobago today. The CPL that will take place in Trinidad in next month.
Yes.
It was launched in Tobago today.
Very good.
But there will be no matches in Tobago, as you know.
Exactly.
Because Tobago has been functioning without vision.
Yes.
And it is clear that they have not been running a nation and they don't have a national psyche. No, I was looking on because the history was made in Tobago just before the earlier part of this year when the under-19 Cricket World Cup was taking place. There's a gentleman named Joshua James from Wim. He's the first Tobagonian to make the West Indies under-19 cricket team. It has not been mentioned in Tobago in the political circles. Just
wow.
He's an all-rounder. He's a tremendous batsman. He has been dominating youth cricket in Tobago and Trinidad for the longest while. In the West Indies team, he was batting too low. They were putting him to bat number 8 and number 9. Wow. The overs almost run out because of the fact that he can bowl. But he was good enough to bat high up the order. Now, if we're really looking at managing, as I was saying earlier on, managing opportunities and carving and presenting opportunities for everybody. Tobago has been underprivileged for years. You know, opportunities are given to some of the youngsters who played in the World Cup tournament. Now we have a franchise in what they call Trinidad and Tobago. It carries Tobago's name. And for the property rights of Tobago's name, Tobago is getting nothing. And I was thinking that Joshua James could have been on the team that carries his name.
Correct.
Trinbago Knight Riders. But there's no Tobagonian to carry that name. And there's no sympathy. Because the world we live in is very competitive. And sport is a rich industry, it's business. And they're not going to give that business to some Tobago family. Even if Tobagonians will feel happy and not feel apart, it doesn't work that way. And even as they say, quote unquote, about Black Lives Matter in the States and all of that, and like they're looking for justice and so on, you have to wonder how realistic, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice every single way.
So true.
But even right here in our own circumstances, we need to focus on the discrimination that is taking place right here. So you have the other youngsters from around the region who participated. They are getting into it.
Right.
And if there's no real representation politically to shift the balance of power, Joshua James will go down the drain just like the others before him.
Yeah, nobody knows or hear about him.
Yeah. It's real stuff I'm telling you about there. But there are young people growing up in Tobago who are talented in sport. That's rich industry.
So
that
true.
making so much money. Cricket, football, netball, you name it, lawn tennis.
So
But you have no nation to represent.
Yes.
And this is what I'm talking about. This is not a time to be chief secretary. This has to be bigger than that.
Exactly.
This is not a time to work under Trinidad. It has to be bigger than that. This is not a time to be obedient to Trinidad. It has to be bigger than that. This is a time to represent your own, to represent our history that has been in captivity for over 400 years. This is the time. This is the time to bolt onto the stage, to get into the world community. And God has blessed us with the resources to do it. We have produced some of the most able people in the world. You have 2 prime ministers from Tobago. You follow what I'm saying?
So true.
We have Tobagonians working in world organizations. Some of them are my friends. I know them personally. Working in the World Bank, working in United Nations. We have produced people.
Wow.
So this question of our ability or capacity is irrelevant. The people that God made in his own image and likeness are able. And we know that through Jesus Christ we can do all things.
So true.
Eh?
So
We
true,
can do
man.
all things through
that
Jesus
is
Christ,
possible.
or Christ who strengthens us. The Spirit of God is able.
Yes.
And the word impossible does not exist. The word impossible exists for doubters, for unbelievers. But the man who believes, what the scripture says, all things are what? Talk to me. All things are possible. For the man who believes,
Yes, everything is possible.
all things
Possible.
are possible. And I'm saying the time has come to release the energies and the talents of Tobagonians in the sporting field. We must be able to put on our own national colors in
So
Tobago and watch Tobago come up against the regions and the other nations in the Caribbean and the world.
So true.
I've been telling you that I have been looking back at some of the old footage and so on of
cricket over the years.
And I'm telling you, they had nothing on Tobago. Nothing. I've been looking at them. I was a batsman, was a leg spin bowler myself, top class.
All right.
They had nothing on us. I'm looking at the old footage and so on. The technique poor.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, Tobago was not under them. And in fact, in the history of Tobago and Trinidad at youth level, we have been dominating Trinidad from the 60s into the 70s, 80s. Tobago has been just dominating Trinidad in both cricket and football, primary school. And even in secondary school too, we see it with Dwight York and Wendell Moore in that era. It's no surprise. It's not a coincidence that the most popular and best, I don't know if it's best, but the most popular world-renowned footballer to come from the region is from Tobago.
Just say it as it is.
It's just a one-off thing?
Yeah.
No.
Say it as it is.
He was playing among other youngsters who were as good as him.
Right here inside out.
We have had a history of that here in Tobago, yeah.
Yes. Right.
And he was lucky. Correct. He got the opportunity, God bless him. But we have been trapped in Tobago here. And I'm saying, I don't know, I'm hoping other Tobagoans are like me. Are we contented to just stay back and to stay trapped and beg for crumbs when God has blessed us with tremendous resources in the sea, strategically located in the airspace, and resources on the land that others have been fighting for? Are you with me?
Yes, correct.
And I had promised last week, and I walked with the document.
Yes.
To talk about proven resources in the Sea of Tobago. And Tobagonians must know this, and our brothers in Trinidad must know. But what I really want to highlight in all of this is the attitude of the Parliament in Trinidad. I want to read, and this is Hansard. This is the Hansard of the parliamentary debate on the Municipal Corporations Amendment Bill of the 7th of the 7th in 2008. They were discussing the municipal corporations because Manning was thinking of federating Trinidad itself. Is an idea that he got from the discussion that I was leading here in Tobago about a federation between Tobago and Trinidad. So he decided he's going to make 14 regional corporations and he's going to empower them, and they would have their own federal system, but he will remain the king, the central government in Trinidad. I'll quote from it. This is page 13. And I will jump off from paragraph 2. And this is Mr. Manning speaking. And he's addressing the member for Siparia, Kamala Prasad Besesa. Hear this. A comment made by the member for Siparia has triggered something in my head. And that is a question of centralization and decentralization. He said, there is the question of decentralization as opposed to devolution. Let us deal with that issue. Let me make the difference clear. Decentralization means decentralizing the execution function, and the policy formulation remains at the center. That is decentralization. Let me just explain what he's saying here. He's saying that when you decentralize the execution function, it is decentralization. If you decentralize the execution function, that is devolution. So he did not want to give the municipalities in Trinidad the power to make policies for themselves. Because real government now.
Right.
So he preaching decentralization. So the execution function means that the government will make the policies and the local governments will just implement, execute it.
Right.
He is not decentralizing the power to them. They must just carry out.
Yes.
So he said, devolution is a decentralization of policy making function. Let me repeat that so the listeners and viewers can really inculcate it properly.
Yes.
Devolution is a decentralization of the policy making function.
Correct. Yeah.
Once the policy making function is decentralized, that is devolution, that Mr. Manning said, and he's correct. He said that is what the PNM is saying can result in the fragmentation of the society. He says society got broke up. If he had to share that power with them local government bodies, the society broke up as far as he's concerned. It will be fragmented. So here up now. He said that is decentralization. We go back there. He says that is what the PNM is saying can result in the fragmentation of the society. Mrs. Kamala Prasad Besesa picked him up. Hear what she says now. I don't know if you could get the words up, but he said, here Miss Besesa said, what about Tobago? Because you know, they view Tobago as a local government. Even though a motion moved for self-government in Tobago, they still view Tobago as one of their local governments.
Oh, okay.
You with me?
Right.
And so she knows that Tobago already has policy-making function. That's why you have secretaries and so on here.
Correct.
Making decisions, making policies, running Tobago. So she asks the question, what about Tobago?
Yeah.
Are you going to be pulling them back into this net where you're taking away the power from them? He answered the question directly. Hear him now. I can tell you that the Tobagonians are saying there is a big debate presently in Tobago that the system is not working well. The Tobagonians are saying that. The Tobagonians are saying that the arrangements under the Tobago House of Assembly are not working well. In fact, presently in Tobago, a debate is going on in search of a new arrangement. And in fact, that entire debate, led by God, was being represented by me.
And this was in what year?
This is in 2008.
2008.
But I was the one here leading that charge for constitutional reform. So, and of course, he would have found out by, his representatives here in Tobago. So he says now, in fact, presently in Tobago, a debate is going on in search of a new arrangement. Mrs. Kamala chipped in again. She said, is there a fallout? Mr. Manning retorted. What fallout? It is their right. I want you to understand this.
Yes.
So Mr. Manning understood. He's saying for Tobagonians to seek whatever arrangement structure they want to govern themselves, it is their right. It is our right. It was admitted here in the parliament. It is the right of the Tobagonian to govern himself. What fallout? He said it is their right.
It is their right, yes.
He says, we do not have to fall out. I turn the page over that. And that's the truth. Tobago and Trinidad do not have to fall out because the people of Tobago are growing into their own and actualizing and now taking their right and their rightful place in the world to chart their own story, to essay, as I said, their own story. There should be no falling out over that. The fact that Africans in America want to chart their own destiny, there should be no fallout over that. Anybody who want to chart their own destiny, to get out of colonization, it is their right. There should be no fallout. Just as Trinidad, Bajans, Vincentians, Antiguans, they are all essaying their own story. There should be no falling out. The angels in heaven will rejoice. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit will rejoice. Righteousness will rejoice.
So true.
The only people who will have a problem with that are those who are not part of the constituency of righteousness.
Exactly.
You with me? There should be no fallout.
So true.
We should be happy that people are getting to themselves.
So true that. So
right?
true that.
So Mr. Manny said we don't have to fall out over that. But he's warning. Listen to this. He spoke the truth. But then he's cautioning the opposition. Here he says, and Tobagonians must be instructed by this. One of the possibilities is that it could lead to the fragmentation of a unitary state. As I told you earlier on, Trinidad and Tobago is considered to be a unitary state, one state.
Yes.
Where there is no justice for Tobago. Because in that one state, you have 39-2, previously 34-2. Trinidad runs everything. Who wins Trinidad, Tobago is theirs. Who wins Trinidad controls Tobago. Before the election begins, Trinidad win. This election here, while we focusing on PNM and UNC, there's also Trinidad and Tobago.
Exactly.
And this, the jack already set. The jack already set. The pack already set. Trinidad win this election. Tobago lost the election already.
Yes.
And if this is the only route, Tobagoans have lost everything that is Tobago. And that is the race we are entering in. And that's why I said, the general election has no bearing in Tobago. There's no relevance. There's no sense to Tobago. Ever since the parliament accepted the motion by A.N.R. Robinson and construct the Tobago House Assembly, the responsibility therefore came to the House Assembly to construct the government of Tobago and declare Tobago's independence and freedom. Wow. That is what went on in all the territories that were colonized. Eric Williams led Trinidad to independence. Errol Barrow led Barbados to independence. Norman Manley led, or Michael Manley led Jamaica to independence. Okay. It's not the parliament in Trinidad to lead Tobago. This has to be done right here by the Tobagonians. In Tobago. We are participating now in a race or in a contest for our resources and our right, and we have given it or we will lose. This is what I want to say concerning the election. Yes. Right? So here he says now, one of the possibilities is that it could lead to the fragmentation of a unitary state. It could lead to that. It could end up to a federation. That is what I was preaching. Yes. It could end up to a federation, meaning to say Trinidad will run Trinidad and Tobago will run Tobago, but we will still have a relationship. Yes. We have a federation.
Correct. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We have a federation. But Manny knows if we end up to a federation, then the resources Trinidad had control from Tobago, Trinidad will no longer control the Tobago resources. Trinidad will now have to live by its own resources, which is what's supposed to happen. So we have been paying that debt all along, suffering. Trinidad been using all our resources. Our population can go because there are no opportunities here. We never had government, and the government in Trinidad not developing universities, schools of higher learning in Tobago, industries and all these things. They are the power, they have the money. Everything is laid on Trinidad, and the Tobago population, the Tobago family is being destroyed because every year Tobagonians leaving Tobago in droves, the population can grow, and they're all going down to Trinidad to look for opportunities. So the Tobago is a society in disintegration. You with me?
Yes.
And this is what we have to fix. Correct. The constitution that now exists is supervising the destruction of the Tobagonian family. Family is very important to God.
Exactly.
Family is very important for the stability of a society, of a culture.
Exactly.
And the Tobago family is being destabilized by the political system. Help me to deal with this situation, my fellow Tobagonians and Trinidadians. Help us, help me to deal with this situation here. Right? So he says, so Manin continue now. He says, it could end up to a federation. He says, we have to understand that. He's talking about them Trinidad both sides. He said, this is not child's play. These are serious issues. He said, you have to understand this. Let me be careful how I put it. There is a regime that governs the conduct of marine business. The law of the sea.
Yes.
You have to be very careful in the context of that regime and the national marine resources. Hear what he said there? You have to be careful of that regime that governs the sea. And the national, in the context, he said, read it again. You have to be very careful in the context of that regime and the national marine resources. How you put prescriptions, meaning laws, in place that have the potential to fragment a unitary state. So what he said, if it comes to a federation, then Tobago is now empowered and Trinidad lose the resources that they have from Tobago. Because Trinidad is not losing Trinidad, but they will lose Tobago resources. Tobago will now gain its own resources and gain itself. He said, do you understand? We have to be very careful about that. Imagine that. They have to be careful about Tobagonians getting the same right that he now said before. It is their right. This went down in a parliament in Trinidad and Tobago, in a parliament in the world, in a parliament in the Caribbean. that ought to be dealing with the freedom and empowerment of people, a parliament in a region that has dealt with decolonization and ought to be dealing with the decolonization and freedom of people. He tell them that to be careful.
Exactly.
I hope that honorable members opposite could understand the seriousness of that. I am sure he says, I am sure you can.
Yes,
Let me look and see where I am. I am sure you can. We are not trying to frighten anybody. I want you to hear this. Here he says, we are not trying to frighten anybody. That is the fact. And you know what happened there? Mrs. Kamala Prasad says that didn't say a next word concerning that. She got the message. And the message is, we must gang up against Tobago.
That is the
we have our differences here in Trinidad, but we must gang up
against Tobago.
And she said not another word. They must keep Tobagonians in bondage, deny, violate Tobagonian rights, and take their resources, take their food.
Yes.
Leave them dependent on us. And every year they must fight. Well, you know, we get 4.0% of the budget, boy. You think we get enough this year, boy? You think we get enough this year, boy? Yeah, but every time they only give me 4.03 and we get this. And have we carried on that kind of stupid conversation?
Yes, caller, good afternoon. I must say, first, the topic was so good this afternoon, we actually went over time.
We out of time?
Yeah, we actually went over the time. I enjoyed the topic this afternoon. And I know some people definitely you would not have seen your comment on the screen is because of the type of things that you have sent. All right? We need to keep our program clean. So please, if you are adjusting the chair person at any time, please make sure that your comments coming across is very clean because it must come here before we send it on the screen. All right, so don't mind you didn't see your comments on the screen, but thank you all for all the comments. Make, as I will say, or Mr. James will say, if you're sending across something, I think Mr. James, you could put it in the best way for me, how they need to put it over. Right, we don't want to be too irrational, right?
Or we need to be clean, uplifting, objective, constructive, and so on. Nothing insulting, nothing demeaning.
Thank you very much.
Derogative.
I think you couldn't say it much better.
Yeah?
You couldn't say it much better.
Yeah.
All right, so hey, don't forget every Thursday right here. Look out. All right, where we actually show how much we do love Tobago. As you can see the sign there, I love Tobago. All right.
I didn't want to all the time.
It was a very, very good topic this afternoon, and I must say, we still have to pick up with the topic where the gentleman they asked about the I saw you send that comment with Tobago. You will view it back when you have time. It is on your phone, and you could able to answer it next time when you do come in.
Okay.
All right.
Amen.
So at this time, people, don't forget, look out for us next week. Same number.
Yeah. No, this one.
Yeah.
This last part, the many viewers might have gone to.
One love. Ballet man looks so, but he's Rasta too. It's not how you look, but the things you do. Now, just say share your love to your brother man. Treat him kind and stretch out a helping hand. But you claim you're proud, you're kind, you're gentle. I hear you quoting words from the Bible, but now you're jumping and I back him though. I and I black, you turn natty dread. Now you're calling me bald head. Rasta man, Supposing like me, you just lose your hair. Now, tell me what you gonna do for identity when your dreadlocks growing inside like me. Then we will know who dread and who faking. Without them locks and flying and shaking. With all that I have said, you would know this I man dread, so don't be misled. Stop calling me bald head. One love. Rasta man, ballad man, Jaja say, one love. With the same skin color from him above. Why this big separation between you and me? How can the hair define an identity? Is Babylon war we fighting? But I and I still separating. All the books I've read say we come from one bed. I don't mess with the dead, so why call me bald head? Rasta, Irie. I man go long locks to prove I man dread. Now to prove I man dread, I man shave he head. What's inside I man is inside I man too. So you see, I man is no different to you. The same oppression we both receiving is the same burden I and I bearing. I and I dread, I reai. Hail Selassie, I Rasta, dread I. Bald head, Rasta man.
Yes, our viewers, thank you for listening in this afternoon. It was a great program. However, we're supposed to have coming up the Vintage Thursday. At this time, I haven't seen any of the DJs or entertainers make their way to the studio. So on behalf of myself and the whole entire crew, once again, I'd like to say it was nice. It was a privilege being online with us this afternoon. All right, and for some of the viewers who still locked on, I'd like to say have a pleasant and productive night. Hey, good night goes out to Tori Wallace. Good night to the Wallace family as well. And to all our viewers, all our listeners. Diane, Laja, good night to Nicole. Good night to each and every one. Have a productive night ahead.